What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here, and more importantly for the day, how are you doing today, Laura? Hope you're having an amazing day. In watching the 2 Weeks to Maple Hill series, I realized there was something that was like super impactful and helpful for me that I didn't spend a lot of time like actually explaining out in the video. And honestly, it was monumental and something that talking with Josh afterwards, he even mentioned that he coaches in his sessions. And so really want to dive into it a bit more and just make a whole video dedicated to this, because there are several people out there who this might be the proper fix for them, but there are a series of warnings that come along with it.
So catch me if I fall.
Let's be honest, 90% of people I feel like that are seeking coaching in their life or are watching disc golf form YouTube videos are watching them because they just straight up want to throw a lot farther. And there are a multitude of ways that you can go about trying to gain that distance. It truly comes down to something quite simple. We need to get the disc spinning, and we need to inject power into the disc, because the more spin and power that's on the disc, as you saw, I can't even hold it. It had so much spin and power. It's just going to go farther. Whatever methods or tricks you're using to get spin and power into the disc are what you need to be doing to throw the disc far. I've told lots of people in coaching sessions that there are two ends to the spectrum. There is accuracy and there is distance. If you are searching to gain accuracy, usually you can't try to be gaining more distance at the same time. And if you're searching for distance, you can't usually be trying to find accuracy at the same time. Search for both at the same time and you'll usually find neither. So in the last couple of weeks of my journey, I've been trying to go much more in that distance threshold, that distance end, and this tip that Mike Strauss gave me actually helped me realize something about injecting power and spin into the shot that I hadn't really noticed before. I may have mentioned this in the video, but there comes a point at the end of the throw where you're going to come to that hit point where the disc is going to pop out or release. You're going to hear so many people say that the disc should be ripping out of your hands. And I saw something that was like super interesting on Reddit the other day of someone talking about how they had it was really tough for them to throw because they kept having cuts on the top of their finger, and a lot of people were like shocked at how that was happening, trying to figure out was the disc like coming back and hitting them. And I think it comes from this standpoint of people feeling like they have to grip the disc so hard so that it actually gets that snap, that pop out of your hand. And yet there's a fundamental problem that we have of knowing that I'm supposed to hit that 10 o'clock or that outward extension or whatever moment you want to tell yourself, whatever cue that is, that I'm supposed to hit that and the disc is supposed to rip out. We don't trust it, and therefore we let the disc go, but then we tell ourselves, oh, I'm supposed to be holding on to it, and so therefore we re-grip and readjust. And that's how I ended up actually cutting some gashes in my finger as well, because I was going too hard, gripping too hard. I don't really know what the words I'm looking for there. It hurt my finger to keep doing what I was doing. So Mike and I had this breakthrough in one of our phone calls where we talked about, I'm just going to grip the disc as hard as I possibly can. And Mike put me in a field and had me throwing while I was gripping the disc, something like this Bravo plastic by Lone Star, actually super easy to throw it. He wanted me gripping the disc so hard. I was literally, you can see I'm like warping this thing. I was gripping it so hard. And he was like, I want you to grip it that hard and see if you can actually still hold on to it. I want you to focus on nothing else that we're doing so that you can come through and have that feeling and see if you can still hold on. And spoiler alert, I couldn't. In fact, out of all the throws I had, I only had one that actually firm grip locked out to the right at about 100 shots.
So I said, I want you gripping the disc as hard as you can. Okay, I want you to just grip the heck out of it, right? Just hang on to it. And so the very first throw he did, I said, now on top of that, of gripping it is really, really tight, I want you to throw this thing as hard as you can. And he's like, what? And I'm like, rip it. Grip it and rip it. I want you to just annihilate this disc. And I needed to start from a place where he was completely uncomfortable, that fear lived, okay? And I'm going to show him the neural pathway that is fear. Neural pathways, everybody, as we all probably know, isn't just physical, it's emotional and mental. what we think, our ideologies, our feelings, what our fears, our anxieties, those are neural pathways. So I needed to shock that neural pathway. And I said, we're going to come. And I didn't tell him. I needed it. He's standing there and he kind of, right, we talked to you, like, what? I'm like, grip it really, really hard and throw it as hard as you can. And he did. So we're going to stop there for a second. Robbie, what did it feel like? I know what your thoughts were before you did it. Like, fine. Mike said if we make a new mistake, fine, we'll make a new mistake. I know you were good with that. But your anticipation of what this thing's going to look like, I think, was different than it did. So what did it feel like when you did it?
Yeah. Because, I mean, the anticipation was everything we had talked about of it's going to grip, it's going to rip behind me. Like, watch out, camera. I'm going to break that because I'm throwing it there. And that thing came out. And I wish I would have taken a better note of it was this disc that I threw. But I remember hitting it and watching it, it came out straight, but moving right. And it full on, I was gripping the disc so hard that we had said, I want to see this thing contorting in your hand. Yeah. So I had a death grip on this
and
thing.
I gave him a drill last night. I forgot to tell you hold it in one hand and I want you to rip it out and see how his thumb just clamped down on his index finger. Last night I said, I want you to pull this off. You can hear it. And I want you to feel that. And he's like, what? I'm like, trust me. I want you. It may not feel right, but trust me, it's going to come out. So what was your thought when it went zing out of your hand as you're gripping it as hard as you can and throwing it as hard as you can? Oh,
I mean, it was crazy because it was okay. Instantly the fear kind of lifted off of, okay, I can't, I literally couldn't hold on to this any tighter than I am right now. And it still is getting out of my hand. And I was like, and I think Mike even asked, so how did that one feel? And I was like, I don't know. I got to throw another one.
So he threw 3 or 4. And then what?
Yeah. And it was every single one of them came out just zipping, absolutely smashing. And there was a few that it was oh, that's gone. That is crushed. But when I was hitting the disc properly, just focused on having the disc rip out of my hands, I noticed that I was getting tremendous snap and power out of the disc because everything else was leading into this moment so that all of the power transferred into the shot. It transferred into that hit and pinched out and ripped, which was what I was looking for. And I think there are tons of players out there that don't actually have this snap or this rip because we're not truly letting the disc rip out of our hands. We're simply helping it, or as I said a lot of the time, cheating and letting go of the disc rather than trusting that it's going to rip out. Now, of course, this comes with a caveat and a warning that Strauss gave me, and I think it's super important to put this in here so that there's not some random guy on the internet telling you that you should just go out and spend so much time just gripping the disc as hard as you can and ripping it over and over again, because Mike had this warning for me.
Now, everybody, I don't always do this with one of my students. I have to know my student. I have to know where they're at. We were limited on time. We had covered a lot of things. I saw something and I needed, like I said, to shock him into a feeling. And we're going to just face the fear and we're going to go completely over the top. What do you mean throw it as hard as I can when I'm gripping it as hard as I can? Nobody talks about that. And I've been down this road for 18 years in my own game, so I already knew. But I never would tell him, go do this on your own and then call me later. Because unsupervised, this can go sideways. This is not something that you put out on a video to have people do. You need to know where they're at and why it is and be there if it goes sideways to try to bring them in. Mike and I spent 2 weeks working through my form, fixing and adjusting things, and we made a lot of progress. But most of that progress was halted or stopped at that final release point because I wasn't letting the actual power transfer into the disc and into the shot to give it what it needed to get going to that massive or big distance hit. Bringing me to this very important point about why we made this video in its entirety, because I do think for lots of people, we need to understand, obviously, I was included in this. Garbage truck has arrived.
That's how that happens. I just like chucked my garbage can and now it's upside down. That is a bummer, dude. So I agree with Mike. While I think that lots of us don't need to just go out and take this being the tried and true method, grab the disc, rip it as hard as you can. But truly, if you've never felt that sensation or you've never had that hit moment of wow, when you are actually going for it, rather than the same sensation that so many of you have felt when you've thrown your biggest shot in the world and it's absolutely grip locked off to the right, or for you lefties out there, off to the left, and you've had the biggest or longest shot of your life way off 300 or 500 or 8,000 feet in the wrong direction. That hit or that grip shock release moment of it ripping out of your hand has occurred. But what I want you to do is I want you to actually be looking for it in that sort of grip lock feeling. And I promise you, if you really hold on to it, you're still going to be able to, if you hit that snap, you hit that outward release moment, it's not going to stay in your hands, which actually blew my mind for a second. But we're not doing this as the full form of power. I want to make sure that we understand something that's highly important about the body and about really athleticism in general, and why this could feel counterintuitive to our overall disc golf form. There are very few sports, if any, where throwing as hard as you can and tensing up all of the muscles and all of the things is going to create faster movement, more efficient movement, any of the sort. Thus, why Mike had me do this, throw it as hard as I can, grip lock it, have all of those tight feelings after we had gone through the hard work and the knowledge check of making sure that everything else was trying to move into the right place, that my footwork was correct, that my shifting was correct, that my offside was engaging how it was supposed to. It all led up to that grip, but I wasn't getting the grip over and over again. And if you hear nothing else in the video, this is probably the biggest nugget. I think so often we spend time talking about how loose the form should feel and how loose everything should be, that often we end up leading to such a loose grip that if you've never had that sensation of the hit where it actually rips out of your hand, you can almost go too loose to where you're helping it and releasing it out and not actually giving power or time for the power to transfer into the actual hit and release of the disc. At least for me, I was trying to be so fluid and smooth in my form that I wasn't allowing athleticism and power to hit into the shot. Loose muscles are absolutely fast muscles, but we go into the fascia that we were talking about before, which is I can tap my finger down like this, and that's a certain amount of power. We're going to use Stego Jeff as a little table to demonstrate this once again. Oh, nice. Great job, guys. Proud of you. There's a certain amount of power when I take my finger and I push it down and I try to make the hit. I can only do that so well. And this is a great example of you just trying to use raw, sheer muscle to come through and throw the disc as hard as you can. While there is power, it's not enough, but it wants to at least get the simulation. And that's all we're looking for with this grip tip, is to get the feeling or simulation of knowing, bang, that's how it should feel. And as we tone that back, we should still be getting the same amount of hit while also being a little more fluid. But I think that for lots of people, we start too fluid. And so I guess really that's what this is trying to address. To continue our analogy, there's another set of power when I just have the tension. This is really hard to do actually, not on the table. When I just like I pull it back, that's flexibility, and eventually the finger just wants to fall forward, right? Like it's doing its thing. And that would be the same example of just being super fluid and letting my levers and tension build and whoo, slow as smooth, smooth as far. Danny nailed it. I think it's excellent. However, the combination of the two, of knowing that I can actively be involved in the throw and I can put some power and effort into it, that there is actually a throw to this rather than just simply doing the motions and pivoting around and things like that. That's where I add the fluidity of I pull the finger back and load the tension, and I'm also pushing down. I'm also pushing into this. The springy fascia that we have built into our body, we're making it flexible while also injecting power is something huge that I really think needs to be talked about more in disc golf. So that's why I made this video. We said at the beginning, and I'll say it again, well, I do think that as we continue to add science and study into this game, we're gonna find more and more about what proper form should look like, and at least proper form to give you the most effective chance or the most obvious chances of you throwing well and efficiently. But each body is different, and so we're going to have to find different ways to achieve the same result. So we just put it down to the plain and simple. However you can inject the most spin and power into the shot while also keeping the nose angle right so that the disc flies correctly as a spinning object should through the air is the way that you're going to find the most success out there on the course. For me, at least right now on my journey, it's working with a coach very heavily, toning down the super deathlock grip into where it's eventually still a firm grip with loose muscles that are firing correctly, and I'm injecting power into them to actually find distance form. But it's a journey. I just truly felt like there needed to be some video talking about this because there are loads of you watching that I feel like are in the same struggle and form journey and haven't had the answer out there on the internet and don't have the availability or the financial to get out there and work with a coach to have these answers directly. So I want to thank Mike for working with me and helping making this journey a little more affordable and accessible to a lot of people. With all that being said, that's all we're going to say in today's video, and I hope you have an amazing rest of the week and that you can make it fantastic for someone else too. Thank you as always for watching. Y'all are the best. Hope you have a great one. But for now, we're going to leave you with the birdie. Hey-oh, Jeff. Hey-oh, Diet Coke. Hey-oh, tumbleweed. Last one's the best one. Bang, nailed it. See you guys in the next one.